In this week's Parashat Korah, we had the terrible rebellion of Korah v'adato, Korah and his henchmen, waging a rebellion against Moshe Rabbeinu, waging a rebellion against Aharon HaKohen. And the parasha starts off that they begin this rebellion, Vayishma Moshe vayipol al panav. And Moshe Rabbeinu hears what happens and he falls on his face. He gets so upset. So I want to look at an interesting Shla Kadosh, which explains what Moshe Rabbeinu was getting so upset about, what's really going on behind the scenes, what was Korah, how was Korah trying to convince everybody to rebel against Moshe Rabbeinu. So if we go to the Gemara, as the Gemara in Sanhedrin Tav Kuf Yud Amud Aleph says the Shla Kadosh, quoting the Gemara, the Ita bePerek Chelek, we learn in the Gemara, Ma Shemu Ashama. The Gemara asked over there, what did Moshe Rabbeinu hear that got him so upset? Now I would have said, oh, here's a rebellion is happening, but the Gemara understands that there's something specific that's being said about Moshe Rabbeinu that gets Moshe extra upset. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rabbi Yonatan, says Rabbi Yonatan, Shehashduhu me'eshet ish. They were suspicious of him for committing adultery, for cheating with married women. Shnei Emar, Vaikenu Moshe Machanez, the Pasuk says in Tehillim, and they were jealous of Moshe in the camp, meaning they were jealous of Moshe. They were suspicious. Something's not right with our wives and Moshe Rabbeinu. You know, we spoke in different times in the past how the women were always the righteous women. They never sin. Moshe also is never sinning. People say, oh, this is too good to be true. There's something going on over here, and they start to have suspicion against Moshe Rabbeinu and their wives. Amar Rabbi Shimon bar Yitzchak belamed shekol echad v'echad kinet ishto Moshe. He says that every single husband warned their wife, like the Kaimini Sota process taking place right now, warned the wife, don't be next to Moshe. Shnei Emar, u'Moshe yikach et ha'oel v'natalo mechutz lamachaneh. As the Pasuk says, that Moshe Rabbeinu pitched his tent outside of the camp, which means Rashi learns, why did Moshe pitch his tent outside the camp? He left because everyone was saying, oh, you want to be with our wives, you want to be that. So he actually left, got up, and moved somewhere else. Ad kan, that's the Gemara. Says the Shla Kadosh, the Yesh Lakshot, we have to ask a question. Even though they were Reshaim, these people were leading a rebellion right now, but how could they think, or what kind of Hava Aminah, what kind of initial thought could they even think and be suspicious of Moshe Rabbeinu when it comes to adultery? How could it be? You know, you look at his wife alone, that he himself from his own de'ah said, I have to separate from my wife. You know, Moshe Rabbeinu, when Hashem came to him at Matan Torah, he says, oh my God, Hashem comes to me at all times. My level of nevuah is just different than everybody else's. I got to separate from my wife. We know at the end of Parshat Balot Techa, we have Miriam speaking out against Moshe Rabbeinu. She's talking with Aharon, that Avak Lashon Hara. They said, oh, why is he divorcing Tzipporah? Why is he separating from Tzipporah? Look at Moshe Rabbeinu. You think Moshe Rabbeinu is doing adultery right now? He's even separating from his own wife because he has this deeper connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We already saw the story happen earlier on. Actually, I remember hearing one sermon by Khan, I believe he was quoting Rav Soloveitchik, who says that, you know, when Aharon and Miriam, when they speak out against Moshe, that opened up a petach for other leaders like Korah to begin to open up as well. And we see over here that it could be that it's a very similar argument against Moshe Rabbeinu. While Aharon and Miriam, or Miriam was going out against the actual, how could you separate from your wife? They're now already taking it to different angles of wife and adultery and what's really going on behind the scenes. But ask the Shla Kadosh right now, if Moshe was so holy, how could everybody have such a suspicion? He was so strict upon himself. So he explains, Kal v'chor eshet chaverov. He's strict on his own wife. How much more so on other people's wives? Im ken, ma tam haya le'resha'im lachshod chashad shu rachuk min ha'sechel. How could they have such a far off? This is the kind of suspicions that these people have. It's so far off from reality. You can't lead a rebellion with something so crazy as saying Moshe Rabbeinu commits adultery. Moshe Rabbeinu, when it comes to sexual actions, is so separated from the physical world. Okay. Explains the Shla Kadosh. He says many commentators, they say don't learn Eshet Ish according to the simple interpretation. And there's a footnote here in the Oz Vadar, which quotes a separate Divrei Shalom, a separate Sherit Yaakov, which all goes in a different angle. What do they say? So it wasn't that they were suspicious of real adultery. Rather, what does Eshet Ish mean over here? Rak Romez al Nebuat Moshe. He says, no, this Gemara of Eshet Ish, don't take it literally. Rather, it's hinting to the prophecy levels of Moshe Rabbeinu. Shekafru ve'amru shenevuato eno panim bepanim pe el pe. Because what were they saying? And now we're making Korah and his rebellion very similar to what Miriam and Aharon were speaking about, but now at a much worse level. They were being kofar. They were denying that his level of prophecy, his level of connection to Hashem, was not panim el panim, wasn't face to face. It wasn't pe el pe, it wasn't mouth to mouth. We learned at the very end of Parashat Balot Techa again that Hashem lets everybody know, b'chol biti ne'emanu. He's with me. He's righteous. He's trustworthy in my house. I speak to him pe el pe. I speak to him mouth to mouth. They were denying this level of nevuah. nevuah. Shehi ma'ala yitara al shar nevi'im, shenevuatam hu al yedei amtzaim. He says, which makes Moshe Rabbeinu's level of prophecy at a higher level than any other prophecy. Moshe Rabbeinu relates to God and talks to God. He's the aspakalaria ha'me'ira. He's that open looking glass. He can speak to Hashem directly while he's awake. Ayen the Rambam in Hilchot Yesodei Torah. Look at Perek Vav over there. Look at Perek Zayin as well. You'll see the details about how Moshe Rabbeinu's level of nevuah, his level of prophecy, is different than all the other prophets. Because all the other prophets, they get from an intermediary. Vehem be'emtzait kat melachim al-kraim ishim. Here's fascinating. He says they get their nevuah, they get spoken to from a level of angels that are known as ishim. Ishim is like a language of an ish, like persons. If you open up the Rambam, Ayen Perek Zayin Halacha Aleph, but also clearer in Perek Bet Halacha Zayin. He says as follows. He says, Shinui Shemot Malachim Al Shem Malatamu. He says the different names of the angels are based on their levels. Therefore, they have names like Chayot HaKodesh, which are very, very high. They have Ofanim, Arelim, Chashbalim, Sarfim, Malachim, Be'Elohim, Ubnei Elohim, Kuvim, Ve'ishim. He says we have 10 levels, and the lowest level is the level of called Ishim. Ishim from the language of like an Ish, like a person. So he says, Uma'ala asiriti ma'alat hatzorah shenikret Ishim, vehem ha'malachim ha'medabrim im ha'nevi'im be'nevi'im lahem b'mareh ha'nevu'ah. He says these are the angels that speak to the Nevi'im, and they come to them in Mareh Nevu'ah. In Perek Zayin, he speaks about them coming, the Ruach HaKodesh comes to this level. Lefichach nikru Ishim shemalatam kruva lemalat dat b'nei Adam. And why are they called Ishim? Because they're close to the Ish, they're close to the Bnei Adam, and therefore they have a name of Ishim. Okay, so now back to our Shlach Kadosh. So he says that a regular Navi gets his nevuah from an angel called an Ish. Tahainu bnei Adam mekablim shvat nevuah be'emtzaitam. That's the intermediary is called the Ish. V'mekablim nikraim Eshet Ish. So if the angel is called an Ish, then a regular Navi who gets it through the intermediary is called an Eshet Ish. Kmo Isha ha'mekabelet hashpa'a me'isha. Like a wife who receives her hashpa'ah from her husband. And that's why Korah was saying, we're kulam kedushim over here. We're all holy. What makes you so special? What, you think you're so special? You think that you're different than everybody else? You too are chashtu be'eshet ish. You too are on the level of the eshet ish. You too are only a receiver. You don't have this deeper connection to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. V'chen piresh harad memor nevuchim, and he says also Ayen the Rambam, who seems to speak about this as well in the more nevuchim. So we have ourselves this concept that you think Moshe Rabbeinu is Eshet Ish. You think he speaks to God intermediary. But what do we know about Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu is known as the Isha Elohim. He himself is the Ish. He himself has this direct connection, this direct talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's what it means that they were suspicious of Eshet Ish. They were suspicious that he was on the level of only being a receiver and on the level of speaking to Hashem panim el panim, peh el peh. That is the Shlach Kadosh lefi the Mekubalim. Then the Shlach Kadosh goes on to give another explanation where he kind of explains it al pi pshat. They really thought that the Moshe Rabbeinu might be cheating, and really the issue wasn't with Moshe, but it was with Aharon, because if Aharon is Kohen Gadol, then he's going to be the one that's going to, do the Sota waters, administer the Sota waters. So I wasn't really sure what that means, but it seems to be like maybe, I don't know, he'd be able to get Moshe out of it, or he would trick people, or somehow the issues with Aharon himself. If now he's in charge of the Sota waters, nothing can be trusted because Moshe Rabbeinu went with his brother. So he has a different pshat over there, more according to the pshat. But the first pshat I think is unbelievable, because it's saying the whole Eshet Ish is a much deeper issue of Nevu'ah, and it connects us all the way back to, they have this concept of Nevi'im in the camp, new Nevi'im in the camp. Hashem is making Skenim, making Ruach HaKodesh. We have Moshe, we have Miriam and Aharon speaking out about this. This seems to be a recurring theme about how close is Moshe Rabbeinu to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And again, the Rambam throughout Yesodei Torah, we're going to actually understand that this Ma'alah of Moshe Rabbeinu is just different levels compared to everybody else. Shabbat Shalom.